I want to bring in Senator Mike Lee, Republican from Utah. He gave Senator Cruz an assist by taking the floor and firing some questions at him. Senator Lee, thanks for joining us. 21 hours of talking. The Senate voted for cloture anyway. Did Cruz and did you accomplish anything?
Well, I have to point out that the vote we had today was on cloture on the motion to proceed, not to be confused with cloture on the bill, which won't occur for a couple of days now. So what we intended to do with this, what Senator Cruz set out to do at the outset of this 21-hour speaking marathon, was to help to highlight the debate surrounding the procedural posture in which we now find ourselves. The House of Representatives has acted and passed a continuing resolution to keep government funded while defunding Obamacare. And when that comes over to the Senate, we've got basically three options, two of which are perfectly acceptable. One would be to vote on it as is, and another would be to vote on it and have amendments, allowing members of both parties to submit amendments and have those considered and voted on themselves. But the third option is the one that we're not okay with, and it seems to be the one that Harry Reid is gravitating toward, which is he wants to have his amendment, one amendment only, to gut the House-passed continuing resolution and nothing else. And we're not okay with that, and that's what we were talking about on the floor.
Senator Lee, you don't have the votes to defund Obamacare in the Senate. The Republicans, your Republican colleagues have said as much. President Obama said he'll veto the bill. You don't have the supermajority necessary. Why are we talking about this if you don't have the votes to do this?
Well, they don't have the votes in the House of Representatives. They didn't have the votes in the House of Representatives at the time they considered this continuing resolution to pass a continuing resolution that didn't contain this. So, look, there is a disagreement between the two chambers. We have Republicans in both houses who want to defund Obamacare. We've got Democrats in both houses who don't. And this is part of the discussion. It's going to be an iterative process with legislative proposals bouncing back and forth in the next few days between the two chambers.
Senator McCain, the 2008 Republican presidential nominee, said today that the American people talked a lot about Obamacare, heard a lot about Obamacare in the 2012 election, and they ultimately reelected President Obama. Why are you so convinced that the American people who did vote to reelect President Obama want you to defund Obamacare?
The more the American people learn about this law, the less they like it. It's never enjoyed a solid majority of support among the American people, but its support has been eroding rather steadily in the recent months as Americans are learning that they're going to be losing jobs, as they're learning that their hours and their wages will be cut, as they're learning, as 20,000 Home Depot employees learned just the other day, that they'll be losing access to health care upon which they've relied for many years. And so with the passage of time, this has become a less popular law, and Americans are asking for relief from this law, especially considering that this law is one that the President himself has described as not ready to implement. The President's not going to follow the law as written, or we shouldn't fund it.
Senator Lee, where's the Republican bill that will solve the problem of rising health care costs and the millions and millions of uninsured, making sure that insurance companies are not able to discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions? Where's the alternative to help the American people who want some sort of health care solution?
You know, there are a lot of Republican proposals. I introduced one last year in my Saving the American Dream plan, which dealt with a system of tax credits which would have allowed for interstate transportability of policies and would have increased the affordability of health care through a system of tax credits available to all Americans that they would be in charge of. The House Republican
I know that there are a bunch of, I'm sorry for interrupting, but there are a number of, this is the answer I get every time I ask a Republican who opposes Obamacare, where's your bill? They say, well, this bill exists and that bill exists. Well, you guys have the majority of the House of Representatives, and you obviously have a large minority in the Senate. Why aren't you uniting behind one of these bills and trying to push it through? It used to be repeal and replace, and now all I hear from you guys is repeal.
Yes, that's right, because we have a piece of legislation that people have recognized is going to be harmful to the American people. I agree with you. We do need to offer something else. Several of us have. The fact that we don't yet have consensus on it doesn't mean that there isn't good reason to protect Americans who are fearful, justifiably and understandably, for what's going to happen to them under Obamacare. And I keep asking my colleagues the question, how many more people will have to be told that they'll be losing their jobs? How many more people will be told that their hours are being cut or that their wages are being slashed? How many more people will have to be informed, as 20,000 Home Depot employees were told on Friday, that they will be losing their health coverage before we turn to the fact that this law is not ready for prime time? It's not ready to be implemented. The President himself is not implementing it as written.
One last question, sir, and obviously you've made a lot of assertions that people disagree with. I don't want to go through each one of them right this second, but I work hard and I have health insurance. Lots of the viewers right now work hard. They have health insurance. When did the Republican Party start opposing the idea that individuals who can afford health insurance but don't pay for health insurance, and therefore I end up paying for them, and viewers who are responsible end up paying for them? When did Republicans start saying, that's okay, you should freeload, it's okay, everybody else will pay for it?
You know, I don't think that's a fair characterization of the Republican position on this at all. I don't think that's a position that any Republican that I know has said, yes, I'm just fine with that. Look,
if you're against the individual mandate, if you're against the individual mandate or any sort of requirement that people have health insurance, then that is your position. You're saying this is the health system, and those who are responsible will pay for those who are irresponsible, those who can afford insurance but don't do it. So I don't understand why.
I understand that that's the position you want to cast me in, but I assure you that is not my position. I don't know any Republicans who feel that way. This is a complex problem, and it's a problem that we have to address in terms of making sure that people have access to affordable health insurance and that it's portable across state lines and from one job to another. There are lots of proposals out there that we can consider that don't involve Obamacare, that don't involve these massive exchanges, that people can't even predict as to their cost, that don't involve this individual mandate that's a massive intrusion into individual privacy and liberty.
But
there are
to you, it's an intrusion.
that we can consider.
To you, it's an intrusion into privacy and liberty. But you oppose the individual mandate, right?
Yes.
So you do not support requiring Americans to have health insurance?
If a state government wanted to do that, I'm aware of no constitutional impediment from the federal Constitution that would prohibit them from doing that. The federal government, in my opinion, does not have the power to do that. I understand that the Supreme Court of the United States reached the opposite conclusion, and it reached that conclusion, in my opinion, on an invalid basis that amounted to rewriting the law, casting what was enacted as a penalty and could not be enacted as a tax, as in fact a tax. And I think that was
So would you support in Utah, would you support a requirement in Utah, in your home state, that individuals be required to have health insurance so people like me and responsible viewers who are watching right now don't have to pay for these freeloaders who can afford insurance but don't pay for it because they don't want to bother and they know that the emergency room's there and I'm going to pay for it and you're going to pay for it? Would you support that in Utah?
I'm not a state lawmaker, and you're not going to push me into a battle regarding state policy. I don't know that the people of Utah would support such a policy, but I'm not going to speculate on what I might do if, in fact, I were a state lawmaker, because I'm not and never have been.
All right, Senator Mike Lee of Utah, thanks, and thanks for diving into the individual mandate with me.